Thank you very much. And I'm just going to continue with this discussion for a little bit. I think my colleague has asked already a bunch of the questions that I had, but I do want to echo what his experience in his constituency office. So I would wager that our offices are either neck and neck in terms of these applications, or Dartmouth North wins in the wrong way, in the bad way. But yes, no, these rent subsidies, and Mr. LaFlèche talked about people attacking the rent subsidy program. That could have been me at one point, and I still, like, policy-wise, and on a very sort of broad level, I don't think that the best way to keep people housed is by giving public money to private landlords. I actually do think a better way is to invest heavily in public housing and in co-op and social housing and supportive housing, on all of those things. And I've said that millions of times, and I won't defend that position. But that being said, the rent subsidy for my constituents and people in my community is keeping people housed right now. And so therefore, I appreciate it, and I do appreciate that it's gone portable. That has changed things considerably. All of that being said, one of the questions I want to ask, so one of the nuances of the CBC article, is that in the last 6 months, so in the reports, the rent supplement data comes in 6-month chunks, and so in this past 6 months, the backlog is there was way more applications, way more dealt with, but the backlog remains at, I think the number is 1,016. But that, compared to the 6 months prior, 55. Is up, from 55. So I'm wondering if, Monsieur Richard, you can talk about why you think that difference has happened.
Monsieur Richard?
Thank you. Unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to look at or read the CBC story. I believe we provided numbers based on that 6. But that's not how we keep track of whether it's the backlog of number of applications. It was just how we reported it. So I would have to look at what is in the article to really comment on this, but it's a point in time. So at the moment, that is roughly what we're seeing in terms of the number of applications that are waiting to be processed.
Ms. LeBlanc?
Right. So just to be a little bit clear, so I'll just quickly read this. So in the last 6 months, there were 2,340 applications received, and by the end of that reporting period, there was 1,016 people still waiting to hear if they received a rent supplement, and that increase is up from 55 people at the end of the previous reporting period. So there's 1,000 more people who are waiting to hear. So what is going on in the department that is causing that to happen? Is it just that there's a massive amount of applications, or is it like staffing shortages? What is the issue with the processing time?
Monsieur Richard?
Thank you for the question. So I feel very uncomfortable because you're asking me to speculate on numbers that I haven't seen yet, but I'll try to give you an answer. And so the one thing that we have seen, that I have seen in the last 6 months of 2022, so not the last 6 months, but the last 6 months of the calendar year, we've seen approximately 400 applications a month. Whereas that number was around half of that in the first 6 months of 2022. So we've seen an increase in demand in the latter part of 2022. Government invested, just looking at my notes, approximately $6 million additional funding in 22-23 to help 2,000 additional households. And so I would venture to guess that this additional investment helped the increase in demand. I can't speculate again why the number is what it is today vis-a-vis what it was the previous period.
Ms. LeBlanc.
Thank you. And would you say that there were, or can you tell us, were there discussions when the demand started rising? Is there a direct correlation between the demand rising and the change from 50% to 30% eligibility?
Monsieur Richard?
We have certainly made government and minister aware, which is why government has increased funding in 22-23 to meet that demand. Yes.
Ms. LeBlanc?
I would argue that the funding increase does not meet the demand, because first of all, we see 1,000 people waiting for rent supplements, but also there's a whole swath of people, there's 20, people who are no longer eligible for the program. So the government, I don't disagree with your budget numbers. I do believe that you've got correct budget numbers there, Mr. Lafleche, but I want to just be clear that even with the budget increase, there's a whole chunk of the population that no longer is applying. So the demand is not, like the demand for housing support is not being met. Do you agree with that statement?
Monsieur Richard?
What I would say is that we are still seeing strong demand for the program, yes.
Ms. LeBlanc?
Thank you. So I want to talk a little bit more about housing in general, but I just again, to Mr. Lafleche's remarks earlier about the housing subsidy, the way I was made aware of the CBC article this morning, and apologies to the journalist because I didn't read the news on the website, but I was on Twitter from ADSM Housing for Women and Children, tweeted the article, and their comment, and let's all acknowledge the excellent and important work that ADSM for Women and Children do in this province. They are experts in housing. They say this is failing Nova Scotians. Offering rent supplements as a key response to the deepening housing crisis and making renters wait months and months to process applications for support. People are desperate and in crisis now. To be clear, we don't believe that rent subs alone are the fix. We need policies, leadership, and major and sustained investment to create thousands of truly affordable housing units across this province.